Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Carlie. Welcome to my channel, Consciousness with Carlie. We are having Susanna Massari on with us today, who is a beautiful channel and medium. She's an author. There's so many incredible things that Susanna has done. I'm going to read off her bio for us real quick before I bring her on to give you an idea. Susanna Massari is a highly respected and seasoned medium, death doula, and author of the thought-provoking book, Living Beyond Death, Understanding Consciousness, Life Within Death, Creative Freedom, and the Limitless Expression of the Self in This World and Worlds Beyond. As a vigil volunteer for hospice, she accompanied the dying during their most profound, intimate, and sacred journey of their life. Her experiences with the dying also offered many post-death visitations, which gave her greater insight on how each individual approaches death in their own way. As someone born into mediumship, her experiences began at an early age with a UFO sighting and a visitation from her grandfather shortly after his death. Over the years, Susanna's travels have led her to experience and work with authentic shamans in Peru and the Taiva Republic, a federal subject of Russia in southern Siberia known as the Land of the Shamans. Her book guides an individual into their inner world and wilderness so they can benefit from greater creative freedom and limitless expression that can lead to a grander understanding of one's own consciousness. Susanna details what life within death really means, how consciousness is always recreating itself for all forms of life, and how we create reality. She shows great consideration of animal consciousness and offers considerable appreciation for their high intelligence and how they are not only our companions, but also our teachers. Readers will also find they are not alone if they have received communication from a deceased loved one.
Hello.
That was so sweet.
Your
I started.
bio?
I started to tear up when my grandfather was mentioned.
Yeah, and I felt it strongly because before we started this, you know how your phone pops up a photograph sometimes? It was a picture of my grandma, and she passed away in April, and she's been very close in my awareness, and it's been a very difficult time. So when you said that, it's like I saw that image of her again within the last hour.
Yeah. I can feel my grandfather here.
Wow.
Sorry, it makes me tear up.
No, it's beautiful. And that's what I wanted you to express today is just your story and your life and how this channeling came about for you. You know, because for me, it was the same thing. There was a lot of loss and death. And then through that, I actually learned how to channel through my lost family members, right? They were teaching me how to speak to them. So would you like to just express how it all started for you?
Oh, well, I'll go back to 9 when I saw the UFO, and I grew up in Miami, and so we had a pretty modern house for the time. It was built on stilts, and I was sitting in the family room, and we had jalousie windows. People from Florida will know what jalousie windows are. They're the glass windows that, have a little lever and, open and close that way. So, and we didn't have air conditioning. And I was looking out the window. It was night, and I saw this light in the sky. And I just followed it. It was moving slowly. It moved over the house. And it was like, when you have that instantaneous feeling that you absolutely know within your whole being what it is. And that's the feeling that I had when this light was going over the house. There was no sound. So I ran across the room because my bedroom was right next to the family room. And I went to my windows and I continued to watch this light going very slowly and no sound. And we weren't in any kind of line of traffic for the Miami airport. So I just knew what it was. And then not too long after that, maybe a month or two after that, I went into my bedroom, and we had Cuban tile. They were huge pieces of tile. And there were 3 silver nuggets, I would say. They were small, but they were all grouped together in the center of one of the tiles. And they just happened to have caught my eye when I went into the bedroom, and I went down to pick them up, and it was like, oh, the UFO people were here last night. Ah!
Wow.
So not long after that, my grandfather passed away, and a lot of visitations happen in my dream state also. And so he had come to me in my dream state. No, I had gone to him. And I had found myself in front of this saloon, right in front of the swinging doors. And I walked in, and there was a man to the left of me dressed in a tuxedo, and he was so out of place because this was a saloon. And everything was new. The wood was really beautiful. And I said, I came to see my grandfather. And so the next thing I knew, I was in the back of the saloon in a booth sitting across from my grandfather. And we had a conversation, and I don't remember what the conversation was because that in my dream was all kind of blurry. And then that was the end of the dream. It lasted a long time. And so I know we had a good conversation, but when I woke up, I knew that was one of his favorite past lives, was the 1800s. And he had a favorite saloon, and that was his favorite place to sit. And
wow.
So after that, during my whole life, I would have all kinds of psychic experiences, dream visitations, out-of-body experiences. And then in the 70s, I was living in Milwaukee, and I was listening to a woman on the radio, and she was the sister of actually my husband now, who was giving ESP classes. And so I joined his ESP classes. And now my husband, Tom Massari, is a channel. He's been channeling since the 70s. So it's been about 52 years that he's been channeling. And so we dated for a little while. We stopped seeing each other, but we still were in the same group of people. And then he moved to California. I moved to Seattle. We lost touch for 35 years. And I found him on the internet 16 years ago.
No way.
Popped in my head one night, and I'm retired with FedEx, and so I was working the front counter, and I was on the computer and on the internet looking for string theory and things like that, and he just popped in my head. And so I Googled him, and his website came up, and I called him and went out for a visit. You know, we had talked on the phone for about a month, and then I went out for a long weekend. It was supposed to be 4 days, and I ended up staying 5 months. And
Wow.
I said, I have to go home.
You're like, I think I'll just move in. I'll just. Wow.
We went together and everything.
Wow.
It was crazy in love, and I still had my home here.
Wow.
My dog was here. My family's here. So I said, I need to go home. And so a month later, he said, I can't live without you, so I'm following you. I'll be there.
Ah. I was going to say, well, he must have chased you because you're here. You're in Florida. That's amazing.
Yeah. So everything, it was really strange because back in the 70s, you were either a psychic or a medium. That's how things were divided. There was no such thing as channels. You were a medium. If you channeled, you were a medium. And so all of my experiences, I thought I was just having psychic experiences. And I know this sounds really dumb. I didn't know I could talk back.
Aww.
Longest time. And but timing is everything, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to back up a little bit. In 2003, and this was, Tom and I got back together in 2008. So 2003, I was fortunate enough to become part of a group that was going to the Amazon. Wow. To study under a shaman. And we had several, four ceremonies of ayahuasca. And that was something that just was such an incredible experience. It was just phenomenal because of my upbringing, which was pretty harsh at times. I did not have faith in myself, and I was taught not to trust myself. Mm-hmm. And that makes me tear up too.
Yeah, I know. I've been crying this whole time.
So, during these ceremonies and afterward, because we had a lot of processing to do after the ceremonies, and we went through several rituals, and we journaled and so forth. And what I came away with was that I could trust my mind. I could trust my mind. And it was like so much fear had left me, and so much calmness and balance had entered my soul. And it was remarkable. And that set me on the journey of trusting who I am, which we all I encourage to do. Everyone that I have a session with, everyone I talk to, when we get into conversations, it's you in my classes, you trust yourself, you trust your beingness, you trust your soul to know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You really do. And nobody is on the wrong path. You're exactly where you're supposed to be at every moment. And so it's that trust that we need to have, and that trust will lead to self-love. And the more love you have for your beingness, for yourself, and this is not the vain kind of love, the more you have self-love, the more you create opportunities for yourself, the more you can expand your awareness, the more you can evolve and raise your consciousness. And so it's the universe is about love. It's about emotion. We live in an emotional universe, and the universe is all about love. And it's not the kind of love that any of us have any concept of here in this reality.
I had an experience last year where I got a very hard awakening to that type of unconditional love. Mm-hmm. And it was my consciousness plugging into the Christ. And I was on the floor screaming, living the sacrifice mm-hmm. of unconditional love. And it was so intense. Yeah. And I was like, and I remember saying, "This is the sacrifice." And it was like I wanted to just shred out of my body, because the love was so intense that I would sacrifice my body mm-hmm. in order to be in it. The vibrational frequency was so intense, and that was a few hours long of having to live that type of unconditional love. And it's just as much pain as it is love, because of the stretching in the body. Like the body can't, stretch enough to receive it, so it wants to actually sacrifice itself.
Mm-hmm. It's a very profound experience. There was a this happened maybe last year, where I was in the kitchen. I don't remember what I was doing, and all of a sudden, it was like I was in the universe. Yeah, I was in my body, but I was outside of my body at the same time. And I was experiencing my true self, my greater self, which is what, when we pass, when we are in spirit, that is what we connect with. We are going back to experiencing our true selves, all of us, you know, and every bit of us. And so I was there, and I'm experiencing this, and I'm out there, and it's, oh my God, I am ancient, 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 ancient. I mean, really ancient.
Right. Not comprehensible.
And it was like, man, oh man, I was timeless. There was no beginning to me, and there was no end to me. And everybody walking this earth will experience that when they pass, unless they have moments like that of transformation and evolvement, when that comes from within you, because it all comes from within. It's just, there's no comparison. And I tell people, you are so much greater than what you think you are and what you believe yourself to be. You are so much greater, and that is for everybody, no matter what our purpose and what our design is for coming into this life and experiencing this reality. You're so much greater, and it's just phenomenal. It's profound. It's intense.
When you started to channel, like before you realized that you were channeling, what type of experiences were you having other than like the dream? So say the dream you had with your grandfather, that was one. How else was your higher self communicating with you and, you know, your loved ones?
All right. What began to happen was that in 2002, I had read. You've heard of John Edward, right? He's the one that basically brought mediumship into mainstream. We can all thank him for doing that. He had a program on the We station, I believe it was, and it was called Crossing Over with John Edward. And I was watching that in the afternoons before I went to work, and I was like, man, I could do that. I can do that. I can do that. And so I went, I bought his book, and at the back of his book, it was his first book, he had a list of people that he recommended for readings. And there was a woman in Port Charlotte, and which is only Port Charlotte, Florida, which is about 4.5 hours away. And so I went to her mediumship development classes, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know, I don't agree with a lot of this stuff, because a lot of it was coming from a place of fear, you know. You always had to protect yourself. There are things out there that are going to get you, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm my own protection. My self-esteem, my own self-awareness, my acceptance or not acceptance of whatever is out there. I protect myself. And I know a lot of people are comfortable with doing the white bubble and things like that and protecting themselves that way. It may be right for a lot of people. It's not right for me. And I have never had any kind of negative spirit come in, you know, nothing like that. Now, I've had people coming in that in life, they were schizophrenic, they were bipolar, and so they had to give me those feelings in order for me to identify them to the person I was doing the reading for. So there was this one gentleman, and I was doing a reading for somebody the next day out in California, and they lived out in California. And the day, let's say it was a Sunday, and Saturday, my whole day, I was like, my emotions were like going from one side to the other, and I'd be happy and elated, and then I would be down in the dumps and going into, feeling like I could go into a rage. And it was just this ping pong of my emotions all day long. And and I couldn't put my finger on somebody being here. It was like the whole house was filled up with this person's energy, and I didn't know what was going on. And so that night, my emotions started swinging again. And I said, okay, all right, I'm done with this. I'm just done with this. And I hear in my head, go ahead and cut yourself. You'll feel better. So I said, oh, okay, all right, I got you. All right, you're going to be coming through tomorrow. Most people would see that as a negative entity coming in and telling them what to do and trying to control them and trying to hurt them. And so what I tell people in my classes is that everything is communication. Everything. It's all communication. And because it's all telepathy, you're going to get physical feelings, you're going to get emotional feelings. I don't use the clairs because a good medium will use all of their senses.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's everything about your inner and outer senses that are going to be utilized during reading. And so you have to understand energy and how that energy is presenting itself to you, and face it and work with it without fear. That's the biggest thing. There's two things that people need to do when they do mediumship or any kind of channeling work or work with consciousness or other entities. Is first you have to get rid of the fear, and the second is to get out of your own way.
Yep.
You have to move out of your own way. You cannot analyze, you cannot judge. You have to be a clear vessel for that energy to come in and
Yep.
to connect with a person's consciousness to connect with your consciousness. So I know we've gotten really off track, but
No, we're just having conversation.
Yeah.
And it, because I resonate so much with you, it's just easy to feel you and the communication, because it truly does feel like it's me just talking to me, right? And vice versa. So it's like it's deep resonance. And it really is that getting out of the way piece. I've been saying that all week because I've had to do light language activations on people. And I've been doing it in the past, but now I'm being asked to do it publicly and with my clients, right? And it is truly just letting myself out of the way, like getting myself out of the way. And when I mean myself, I mean whatever it is that I know or whatever things I've been told or taught, that has to go, because what I'm doing is I'm plugging into energy. And that energy, I get to choose how I express it out in my body, because I have to use my senses, right? So it's like I'm coding, I'm speaking, I'm singing, I'm toning, all of those things, because however that energy comes through, there's not a way to really express it. So we have to do it through light language and tone and sound, because the sound is the only way for that resonance to hit somebody else. And I've noticed, even I had a really intense session yesterday where when I got to the heart, Susanna, so when I started with the root all the way up, a lot of it was toning and coding and all of that. But when I got to the heart, it was like a totally different energy, because I was doing the chakra. And when I got to the heart, I started singing, and I'm a singer, but I was the energy was not calling for deep activation. It was calling for remembrance of self. So therefore I'm just singing and I'm toning and I'm channeling words and I'm activating that heart. And it's a different energy than, say, the root, and it's using all of your senses to know how to express that, and also what it's asking you to express. If it's asking me to express a loving, soft energy that doesn't call for intense coding and activation and clearing, right? It's just a remembrance of the heart. It was really interesting how the energy shifted that whole time through every single chakra with the man I was working with. And even when it got to the crown, because his crown was already open. And so what I'm doing is I'm tapping into his energy and feeling it as if it's my own. And I'm actually doing the light language through myself and doing it to me as if I'm him. But it is him because I'm connected telepathically to his energy. That's the only way I know how to feel it with every sense and hear it. And it is like morphing into each other. Like that's the unity, you know, it's like you're morphing. And at that moment, I and him become twin flame mirrors at that moment, because I'm mirroring back to him his direct frequency.
You were merging consciousnesses.
Right, exactly. That's how it feels. It's just like merging. But I can't do that if the Carlie, the avatar with programs and belief systems, is in the way. That's not a merge. A merge is an empty vessel, right?
Yeah. I don't know much about light language, but I'd like to talk to you more about that sometime so you can explain it all. Because what I've seen on YouTube is totally different than what you do, because you're a highly creative and empathic person, is my impression of you. And you're so loving and giving. But what I've seen with people who speak the light language on YouTube, a lot of it seems performative, that there's not a change of consciousness. They're not in an altered state of consciousness. Because that's what happened to you, is you were in an altered state of consciousness. You were merging your consciousness with this man and energies and exchanging energies and all of that. A lot of that I don't see. And so I think, like with mediums and channels, if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of people who want to be and are not authentic.
Right. Well, and through our telepathy, and because you and I are such highly sensitive people, we can feel the difference. You know, others may not feel it. So you can do your light language, but light language is a direct energetic channel. So I can do coding all day long, but if I'm not plugged into a source, you can't feel it. You know, you should be getting chills. You should be crying. You should be feeling activations, because I'm not sitting here trying to do light language. I'm actually giving you an energetic recoding, you know, to your system. And everybody does it differently. That's why there's no judgment, you know, because we all express it differently. But it absolutely needs to be where you are home within yourself, your mind is clear, you're in a meditative space, and your channel is wide open. Most of the time my eyes are closed when I'm doing it, because I'm tuned right into it, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's intense. It's exhausting. Like, I only do one a day of those. The rest is just consciousness coaching, because it takes every ounce of me. And it can go on for an hour and a half. Like, I charge people for 1 hour's worth, but the divine runs the show, because I know that it's going to be longer than an hour, and I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. You know, yesterday it was an hour and a half, because I'm not sitting there going, oh, we got 10 minutes. No, like, this is an energy transference. Like,
the same things with my readings. If it goes over an hour, if it's an hour and a half, so be it. There's really not a time, because spirit is in charge. They run the show, and usually it winds down in an hour, because they're also very respective. But if it keeps going, it keeps going. You know, I'm not like that. I can't, you know, say, oh, okay, here we go. Our hour's up. You know.
Well, I mean, that's just having the discernment, you know, as a professional medium, professional in the sense of we know how to balance like the human time and that. And so for me, it's like, hey, well, I'm just going to give myself 3 good hours, with this one session for time before, time during, time after, and not go bam, bam, bam and try and squish everyone together in order to fit everyone in, because then I'm not serving anybody.
Right.
Now I'm rushed. Now I'm stressed. Like, I can't do it.
Yeah. It's I don't do multiple readings during a day. One is good.
Yeah.
One, because I don't know how long it's going to last, and I don't know how intense it's going to be. And what's been happening over the last couple of years, because my mediumship is expanding and it's evolving, and I started doing conscious channeling. And now conscious channeling is that I'm fully aware of everything, but I'm out of the way, and whomever is coming through, whether it be a deceased person or a higher evolved entity, a guide, whomever, if they're coming through for the person, which has happened several times, to give them some really, really needed advice about their life and their health. And so when they come through, it's not like I'm interpreting visions, feelings, pictures that they're showing me that I have to interpret, that they give me symbols. Conscious channeling is when the entity is speaking directly through me to the person, but I'm still aware.
I have that. I've experienced that.
Tom goes to, basically, he calls it going to sleep. He doesn't remember anything about the session, and his personality that's been speaking through him all these years is goes by Abram. And when he comes out, he can remember maybe bits and pieces here and there, but basically he really doesn't remember anything. And so that's not my forte. I will never do what he's doing. And but conscious channeling is something that's developing, and automatic writing also. Automatic writing is like conscious channeling. They're just giving you information and it's just coming straight through. And I have a chapter on conscious channeling with some samples of what's come through. It was kind of, in 20, 21, 22, 23. And so that's evolving. My next book is going to be all automatic writing.
Okay, so interesting that this is happening for you, because I'm a musician, so I've been writing music. I play guitar, I sing, I've done it my whole life. I have to change the way I write now as well, and it's all channeled writing. So I posted a song last week, and it was after a huge light language activation I had with a client. And my dad, he passed a long time ago, but he helps me write, because that's where I get my music abilities from, is from that line. And when I was trying to think about lyrics, it just wasn't working, right? And then my dad's like, "Oh, Carlie, no, you're going to be doing this differently now." He said, "Pick up your guitar, turn on your camera, and just do whatever comes through." And so I posted that video last week, and it was one take. I turned on my camera, picked up my guitar, and whatever came through is what I sang and did, and posted it in one take. And I was like, oh. And that's what you're saying. It's like the channel writing, the channel expression, the true telepathic communication without thought is the truest form of authentic communication, because now we don't have the human mind programs distorting the energy or thinking about it, because then it gets fragmented.
Right. There's an experience that I had when I was working with the dying. It was my first vigil, and you don't have to be a medium or anything. In my book, I tell people that we are all born with all possibilities within us, and we all have mediumship and channeling abilities, but not everybody is born into it. You know, it's like any kind of talent, like a painter, a singer, um, somebody in sports or gymnastics. You know, everybody can bounce a basketball and maybe shoot some hoops, but not everybody's going to be a Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. And so what I say, the analogy that I use is that everybody can use a hammer, but not everyone's going to be a carpenter. Mm-hmm. So everyone has abilities. We all are born with all possibilities within us. And everybody can experience the feelings of someone who's deceased and spirit around us, whether it's guides or they're angels or whomever. And so working with the dying, and this was my first vigil, and I didn't know the woman was deaf. She had lost her hearing years ago in her life, and she had not enough money to get hearing aids, and so she just learned how to read lips. And so she had Alzheimer's, and she was in hospice, and I went to visit her. I went to visit her twice, and she was reading my lips, and I didn't know she was deaf at the time. And she would blow me kisses as I left the door, walked out. And for my first vigil, and I was sitting there with her daughter-in-law was there, and we were talking about her life, and she was filling me in on her entire life. And she had this, she had bad knees, she had health problems. When she was dying, her hair was very, very thin. And so we just talked for hours while she was in her death journey. And when she took her last breath, as we were holding her hands, and she took her last breath, and this is called a shared crossing experience. She took me with her as she, what we call crossed over. She took me with her, and I get goosebumps thinking about it. And all of a sudden, we were both in this panoramic view of mountains in the background and these beautiful yellow flowers that came up maybe mid-shin, all kinds of different varieties of flowers. And I stayed stationary where I was. She had reverted into being 12 years old. It was a time in her life where she had no responsibility. She had perfect health. She had beautiful long hair. And she was running through this field of these yellow flowers. And as she was running, none of the flowers were being harmed. She wasn't making a path, through the flowers. And it wasn't like that. And she was running towards her father. Now I could feel her father way in the background. And she was running toward him. And it was the most beautiful and profound experience. And I had never experienced that before. And that's called shared crossing. That happens to a lot of people. A shared crossing can also be when at the moment of somebody's death, even though there's space between you, whether it's on the other side of town or another country or another state. A lot of people have visitations in their dream state. It's just incredible in the life that is around us, even in death. There's so much life. And the dream state, the dream state is such a rich place to learn about yourself, because your dreams talk to you. Your dreams tell you about you. It's you seeing you. And there have been so many times my dreams have given me solutions to problems. What was his name? Dimitri, Mendeleev, Dmitry Mendeleev, who discovered the periodic table, the organization of the periodic table in his dreams.
Wow.
Paul McCartney got the melody for Yesterday in his dream.
Wow. I've had that happen before.
Yeah.
Where I've had to wake up and hurry and do a voice note before it was gone, because it would be a whole song that was coming through in my dream.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's such a rich place to learn about yourself and to learn about your own emotions. And that's another thing that I stress to people, that, in order to raise your consciousness, to truly have that, that inner transformation and that raising of consciousness, you have to go in and do the hard work. You have to go in and face your traumas and your pain and work through those, and understand what your triggers are. I was watching somebody on a podcast the other day. I don't remember who it was, so I can't give credit to this person. But they were saying that when you go in and you do your deep work, you will always have that experience. And this is what Tom and I also teach, because the energy of that experience, even if you don't remember it, let's say something harsh happened to you as a child or something very traumatic, you may not remember what happened, but the energy of that experience is still in your body. It's in your cells, it's in your muscles, and it's always there. And so when we have triggers, if you have done your inner work and you know where that trigger is coming from, let's say if somebody says something to you and they do it in such a cutting way that you just feel so small. And because you feel small because you felt small when you were a child and something happened to you. You were, we trust the adults, and somebody made you feel small. So if somebody, as you're an adult, says something to you that cuts and hurts and makes you feel not good about yourself, you can stop, take a breath, and think, okay, this is a trigger for me. This is my experience. I know where this is coming from. It's not me. It's that person. I don't own what that person just said. It doesn't belong.
Yeah.
And that's that person's problem.
Yeah.
So it's so important to do your inner work, and whether you need to go to therapy, find a healer, whatever works for you. And
there's so many levels to what you're saying too. Like, even when you've done that inner work, the inner work that you've done just helps you catch it quicker. So when it comes, like, I can still have those feelings, but I'll catch it now. Yes. And I'll say, don't be a bitch, Carlie. Don't be a bitch. You know what I mean? Like there's like that, but I'm aware of it enough to where I can hold it back, because I know that it's not how I really feel. It's just something that's coming up for me that's old. And I'm like, no, I don't need to manifest that into a mirror who's then going to project back to me my own shit. And now I'm stuck with it. Like, so that awareness of it doesn't mean that it doesn't come. It's just you get, tighter on it. And if you've noticed this too, once you've done that inner work and you've died and were reborn so many times, that now for me it's another level. Now it's another level of discernment where I feel that in my body when I'm around people that are inauthentic, because it's, even though they're trying to portray that they're being authentic, when my heart races and I feel like I can't breathe, and it's not because it's a remembrance of who I am.
Right.
It's because it's showing me that I am not that.
Right.
Now I know, I'm so sensitive, and now I know, oh, they're not authentic to them, and that's why I feel like I can't be authentic. So I can't be authentic, which is making my nervous system go off.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Um, so even now, this is another level for us that I've experienced where we're being asked to not even work with certain people, right? I've brought this up in a past live where I'm like, and it's not because they're doing anything wrong. It's just that we're carrying a frequency that's so high now that it's our responsibility to make sure that we're bringing that frequency through the mirrors together and not allowing inauthentic, distorted, fragmented
Right.
consciousness on. I'm not holding space for that. Like,
Right.
I'm holding space for authenticity
Right.
because my channel is for others to feel like they can be authentic. And so I feel even that trigger that you're talking about, now it's a new level of trigger for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, oh, I'm feeling this not because I'm upset. I'm feeling it because I can't be real in front of you because it'll trigger you, right? That's what's happening. I'm like, oh, I can't be authentic because your ego's gonna get upset because you can't see yourself in my mirror, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, oh, I can't even talk to you, and that's okay. I love you, but that's okay.
Right.
I can't, you
Right.
know.
And that's, setting boundaries and all of that. Um, there was there was another man that I watched on a podcast, and he's a motivational speaker. I think he was a former football player. His first name is Trent. I don't recall what his last name is. And he was talking about boundaries and setting boundaries. He said they're not boundaries. He said, don't think of boundaries. Think of a bridge. And you're on one side of the bridge and another person is on the other side of the bridge. Where are you going to first allow that person to cross that bridge and come into your life? Whether and he was talking about rooms in your house. Are you going to let this person into your kitchen? Are you going to let them into your bedroom? Are you going to let them into your living room?
Right.
So you have to have that discernment. Who am I going to accept in my life?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of energy am I going to accept in my life? And it's who am I going to let cross that bridge to come into my life?
Yeah. And that's why it's so important for everyone listening. That's why it's so important for you to know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, know what you're serving. Just know what you're serving, and that energy will carry you. Because if you don't know what you're serving or who you are, then you end up with all these mirrors that end up
Mm-hmm.
hurting you because
Mm-hmm.
it's unconscious. You don't know. And that's why they're there. It's giving you an opportunity to see yourself and see what
Right.
you're not.
Right.
And it's not
Right.
going to feel good.
No.
So you have to get good at the game, you
Right.
know?
Right. And it's and I go into this in the book. Um, a lot of it is mirroring. A lot of it is you get sucked into somebody else's reality.
Mhm.
And you have to be aware of when you get sucked in. I Now this is a very tragic story. I became friends with a woman, very, very good friends. We lived in a different part of the state, and so we were on the phone together a lot. And I didn't know their history. I don't need to know somebody's history. I just need to know who you are in the present moment, how you treat me, what your energy is like. And we just hit it off. I didn't know her background, nothing. And I have a curio cabinet that has a light. And this curio cabinet, when things started getting weird with her, I mean, things got really weird, to where she thought that a dead musician was her husband, and her child was the product of that union. And I mean, it was just very not in this reality. And by that time, I had just kind of been sucked in, you know, because I loved her. And we were great friends and we talked about all kinds of stuff. But then when things started getting weird, and every time I talked to her, the light in my curio cabinet went off.
Wow.
And there were some times when I was talking to her, I'd get up and I'd turn it off, it'd go right back on again.
Wow.
I'd turn it off, it would go back on again. Turn it off, it would go back on.
Trying to get your attention, huh?
So I ended up plugging it. It was like, I don't know what's going on. She ended up, I found out later, was bipolar. She had murdered her youngest child and killed herself.
Whoa.
And to be with this person that she felt she was with.
Well, that's kind of what we saw with that case recently. God, the Daybells, Chad Daybell and whatever Daybell, the ones where they believed, and they brought the starseeds into this shit, where they were like, oh, there's 144,000 and we're going with God and all this stuff. And so she murdered her children to be with this man, believing that, you know, that God was coming. And really what that shows us is how deep the separation is. How they're delusional because they're lost in separation.
Yes. It's tragic.
Yeah.
And it was devastating, but that's your example. And what happened with my friend is how we can get sucked into somebody else's reality. And then there's also, along with the mirroring and getting sucked into somebody else's reality until you wake up and figure out what's going on, is sometimes your energy just doesn't jive with somebody else's, and it's nobody's fault. There's no judgment to it. You know, your energies just clash.
Right.
And I don't know, but when people raise their consciousness, they do their inner work, they have transformative experiences, then you begin to better recognize people who are, and I say this without judgment, underdeveloped.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, it's like my husband always says, like, imagine you right now trying to explain to an ant what you are.
Right.
It's just a different level of consciousness. They can't hear you. There's no judgment in it. It's just, it is what it is.
And everyone's on their own path. They have to do their own. It's like through the state of Florida, we have 95. It goes straight through the state. And then in our city, there's 295, which goes around the state. So some people take 95, some people take 295. You know,
sure.
We're all individualized. We're all learning at our own pace.
Sure.
And, so it's life is really fantastic here.
I think so too.
It really is. For all our problems and all of the craziness, and sometimes it feels like we're in an upside down reality. This is a beautiful reality. I mean, just people are beautiful. They really are. But we're so focused on shit.
What isn't serving us, right? We're focused on what isn't serving.
You know, you have to figure out when something's going on in your life, you have to figure out what is it about it that's serving me emotionally?
Right.
What is serving me emotionally? And the same with, I want to get back to when you were talking about the ego, is that I also preach. I tell people all the time. So does Tom, so does Abram, that make the ego your friend because it's part of your consciousness. And the ego is how it is how we deal with being in this three-dimensional reality. It helps us deal with this reality, but it is also, I try and get people to think in a different way, that the ego is like a yardstick or a barometer for how you are feeling emotionally. Because if you feel like you're getting, egotistical, or somebody else is egotistical, you know how are you feeling emotionally? Where are you emotionally? Are you are you calm and giving and let things roll off your back, or do you have to have control? Control is an emotion. It's emotional. And why do you need to feel that you have to have control? So it's not, I don't believe that the ego is like an appendage that needs to be cut off or that we need to get rid of it. It's a barometer for you to understand your own emotions and other people's emotions. And it's part of your consciousness. Like I said, it's part of your consciousness. And why do you want to get rid of part of your consciousness?
Yeah, it's an extension of your energy.
Yeah.
Our live is going to shut off in a few
Okay.
minutes. I just want to
All right.
let you know.
Okay.
It went by quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking on that real quickly, yes, your ego is an extension of your energy. I like to come outside of it and look at
Mhm.
Carlie as a separate
Mhm.
entity, and I'll look at her from third person, and give her compassion and love, and
Right.
see all the things that I've been through, but do it from third person because that is very helpful when you bring yourself outside of it.
Right.
Before
Can
we get
can I
off,
show
I would love you what?
can I show my book?
So I want you to tell how they show your book, and I want you to express where they can get your book.
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It is, you can get the paperback or the ebook. The ebook is very affordable. It's $4.99. The paperback is, I think it's $24.99 or $24.95, something like that. I have an amazing artist. Her name is Nick Duncanstein. The graphic artist on the front cover and the back cover is Jan Drozd. He's also on Instagram, and so is Nick. And my layout designer and editing person is Cheryl Stewart.
Wow. Yeah, and I
So,
plan on getting a hard copy from you in person, having you sign it, taking a picture with me. My husband said that we're going to go get me a chiropractor appointment down where you actually are. He was like, "Oh, Susanna lives down there," because I had mentioned whenever I talked to you last. And he's like, "We'll go get your chiropractor appointment down there, and
I
then
have,
we can meet up."
I have a great chiropractor.
Okay, well,
If
send
you
me over
want
the info. Well, thank you so
thank
much, and
you so
thank
much.
you everyone on here. And go look at Susanna's book on Amazon. I will put the information in the details, and the replay will be available on both of our profiles. I love you all very much, and thank you for your time and your energy today.
Thank
And we
you.
will do another
Yeah,
one. We'll do another one. Okay.
absolutely. All
All
right.
right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.